Hello, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the Dumb Bitch Book Club. My name's Chandler.
I'm Hayden.
And today we're going to be talking about City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. This is a continuation of that first video we did when we read City of Bones. If you want a link to that, it'll be in the description down below. But today we're reading the second book in the Mortal Instrument series. I, for one, am quite excited to delve into this one, given that this book is one that I actually haven't revisited quite as much as City of Bones. And I will say, upon reread, there's a lot that I forgot. I'm ready to talk about it with you here today. What are your initial thoughts, Hayden?
This one was not my favorite. Not even because, I don't like the series or anything like that. I'll keep those thoughts separate, right? Yeah, this one just felt like filler. There were a couple of things that happened in this book, but it kind of just seemed like a repeat of the first book in a lot of ways. And I'll get more into that as we go through the plot points. I basically felt like this book could have not existed and there wouldn't be very much change from the story.
For once, I think you and I are actually on the same page about this.
Wow.
I feel like this book was also kind of a rehash of the last one, and I didn't remember that from the first time that I read these books. I've read City of Bones multiple times. That's a book that I feel like I remember pretty well. Plotline, this one, there were key moments that I recognized upon reread. There were some things that I thought were going to happen that didn't actually happen in this book, and I think that surprised me more than anything.
Yeah.
I'm rethinking my thoughts on the series definitely after having read this book. I think this, to me, is a big question mark and red flag, I suppose. I don't remember some of the stuff that happened in this book. And it's not that any of the things that happen in this book are necessarily egregious. It's definitely making me rethink my stance on how I feel about the series as a whole. And I'll probably talk more about that in the next video that we do, because I do know that if the things that I was thinking were going to happen in this book didn't happen in this book, they will happen in the next one. We'll talk about it then. But overall, I'm just feeling a little uneasy.
What was your stance before? This was an excellent, a god tier series.
I don't know that I would consider it god tier, but it was certainly a formative series for me. I feel like Jace was one of my first book boyfriends. I still stand by that. I really do like him. I think he stands apart from a lot of other YA heroes, but I do feel like overall the series has gone down in my head a little bit, just given this one particular thing, and I'm sure you can all guess what that one particular thing is. Didn't love this one. I listened to it all today, so it's really fresh in my mind. And I think for me, if I were to star rate this based on my current thoughts and feelings and how I feel now, I think I'd give this 3 stars. I don't think it was the worst thing that I've ever read. Definitely kept me entertained and engaged, but I do feel like it was a bit of a retread in terms of plotline. It didn't feel like anything new or original was happening, and I really wish new and exciting things would have happened.
This would be a 2-star for me.
That's a fair assessment. I can't argue with that.
Because you said that it kind of kept you entertained and engaged,
yeah.
And I didn't even get that from it. It wasn't poorly written where it was grating to get through,
Yeah.
It wasn't painful, but it just didn't really give me much in terms of entertainment, if I'm being quite honest.
That's fair. I think for me, the moments of levity were what I appreciated, and I do like the melodrama, I would say, in the series in general. So, I wasn't mad at everything that happened. It is just interesting viewing it through an adult lens. Some of the choices that Miss Cassandra makes, especially surrounding the idea of siblings, which I'm sure we'll get into as we talk about the plot of this book, because it's hard to divorce that from everything else that happens. So, I guess we can go ahead and get into it. Goodness, I don't know how long this one will be. Probably, I would assume not as long as our others. Just, I'm looking at my notes. They're a little skimpy.
A little shorter in comparison. And normally I have a lot of things to fill in, in your notes, either things to add to your notes that you already have, or just things that I want to talk about that you didn't even put in your notes. But this one, like I said, I don't feel that way. So we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna try not to just complain at every plot point.
I mean, feel free.
But
I think the people are here for it.
Give my opinions,
Please do. Okay, so this book opens. We have, I would say, 2, I don't want to say distinct timelines or plot lines, but no, let's go with plot lines here. We have Clary and Simon, and they're kind of just hanging out, being friends, as friends do. And we also have Jace basically being abandoned by his mom. I will say that's not something that I really remember happening. It is not uncharacteristic of this family at all, I would say.
Yeah.
I really don't love is it Lightwood family? Yes. It's a lot of pomp and circumstance with them. It's a lot of acting like they're super cool and the best family ever, but there's not a whole lot of I would say real love between anyone in the family. I'm not surprised that his mom abandons him at this very opening scene. I was sort of surprised. So I feel like I should give a little bit more context here.
I was not surprised at at all. Just wanted to go ahead and say that, put that out there.
Maris Lightwood, Isabel and Alex's mom, comes to the Clave. Finally, we've got adults here that are not just Hodge, who ends up abandoning the children anyway. She comes back and is like, hey, I brought your brother Max. Also, hey, Jace, now that I know that Valentine is actually your father, I don't really think I can pretend to be your mom anymore. I know you think of me as your mother, and I know that you think of your friends as step siblings, and you refer to them often as that. However, I'm gonna need you to get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah, she's like, I don't trust you, because how do I know that you're not, like, working with Valentine?
I think this is an interesting form of questioning from her. However, I can't imagine, looking your baby boy in the eye, even if he's not someone that you birthed out of your, cooter, I can't imagine looking my baby boy in the eye and being like, you know what, I'm gonna need you to fucking leave. Questionable.
It didn't surprise me at all, personally, just based on what we know about the Lightwood children so far, like Jace kind of being included in that and their relationship. I could tell that, their upbringing wasn't very loving, to put it lightly. Yeah,
I mean, they essentially abandoned their kids at this place. Like, they're underage. They're underage children in New York, and they live in a different country. And I'm pretty sure are they banned from living at the Institute or something? I think there's something funky going on there. Like, it maybe wasn't 100% their choice, but we still get the vibe that, like, maybe they're not the best parents ever, which is fine, I guess. But I think viewing it from the lens of an adult, I, actually noticed this time. I feel like when you're a kid, almost all forms of media have children being abandoned by their parents, or their parents die, or, they're orphaned, because it makes the story move along a little bit better because you don't have parents questioning your every move. I get it. Reading it this time, I'm like, the parents are such an integral part of the story, not only in this series, but in other series that Cassandra Clare writes. So it's just interesting to me that to have the one, mother figure in his life abandon him. And you know what? I sort of get it, because gotta give him more angst.
Do we, though? I think he has enough. He had enough even before we found out that Valentine was his dad.
Or that he was kissing his sister.
That Fair stuff enough. Aside, he was angsty from scene 1 of book 1. Am I in the wrong for being surprised by the fact that there was another sibling in the mix? I don't remember that from the first book.
I think it's
even mentioned.
I think it's a throwaway line about how their little brother Max is Alicante with their parents, but
did not remember that. So when they were like Max, I was like, who's Max?
Who the fuck is Max?
Did you guys just create another child? And not only that, but I thought it was he was very much a throwaway character for me. Like, he had literally zero significance in this book, and I don't know if he will in any future books, but nothing that happens with Max. You might as well just not have put him in this book.
I think he could have shown up in the book where he becomes important, and it would have had the same impact, personally.
Okay.
So we have this run-in essentially with Jason, his adopted mother. She says, okay, I don't really believe what you're saying. I don't believe that you are not in leagues with Valentine now. Not only do we know he's your dad, I think you are in leagues with him. We're gonna call the Inquisitor here, who's basically a big old bitch who questions people. Yeah. The Inquisitor is invited to the Institute, and she's gonna question Jace and make sure that he is really he's really cool. But of course, Jace has a big fat mouth. He gets in trouble with the Inquisitor basically immediately upon her arriving, and he is thrown into the Bone City. You're not gonna answer my questions and you're not gonna behave? Well, you can go to the Bone City. And so now he's with the Spooky Brothers.
And at the same time, the thing that you said at the very beginning of this is that this book opens with Simon and Claire hanging out. But what actually is happening is, while Jace is getting thrown into bone jail, Clary's like, well, if I can't kiss my brother, I guess I'll let my best friend kiss me. Also refer to me as his girlfriend, even though I am not saying that we're dating. I'm also not gonna tell him no, maybe because she's scared of losing him again or something. I don't know.
I think Clary's just vibing with those teenage hormones, to be honest. Yeah. I think she's just whatever moves.
Well, Simon was really thought that he lost out. And then he finds out that Jace is her brother. And so he's
yes.
He's like, I am in.
No, but he says in his head, I remember this distinctly. I can remember what I was doing when I was listening to this. I was raking our carpet with a little carpet rake. I was listening and he was like, I really thought I was out of the running whenever Jace came into the picture, but now that he's her brother, I think I have a chance. Except for, I don't know that I actually have a chance because she hasn't given up hope that she can make out with her brother. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know that that's something that anyone should be thinking.
She is correct to not give up hope.
Besides the two weirdos involved, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't like that everyone else is kind of catching the vibe, because what sorts of off-putting, disgusting vibes are you giving off that everyone around you knows you want to fuck your brother? am unsettled. I think this is around the time too when we meet Maya as well. Maya is a werewolf character who comes into play. She's not, I would say, super important. She is about as important, I would say, as like an Alec or an Isabel.
I would say that she is more important than Alec and Isabel.
Okay, fair enough.
In this book and the last book, they
really
like,
don't have much personality, and that's something we can get into, I guess, right here. I guess maybe it's because I've seen like the show, and because I watched the movie, and because I know the lore and like the love that people have for these characters, but I remember in my heart of hearts that Alec and Demon Daddy Magnus, like I remember them being more of a player in the story, and not just being like the queer bait that I guess they essentially are in these first couple of books. Like, we get this idea that Alec, you know, is gay and that he has feelings for Jace. Like, they have almost no relevance to this book. Magnus obviously is helpful because he's a warlock, but like, what the fuck does Alec do?
I was gonna say Magnus is also a more important character than like any of the like actual Lightwoods.
The peripheral like fucking shadow hunters who should be doing things. And Alec, I think, is just there to like get injured. Like, that is pretty much his thing. Alec or Isabel.
Yeah.
One of them is gonna get some demon poison and they're gonna be out for a little bit.
Yeah.
That's about it. That's about the extent of their existence in these books.
And one of them has to go to like take care of the other one too. So it like takes both of them out.
Yeah, we're like, okay, let's get rid of them. All of that to say, Maya is someone who we're introduced to in this book. She's a werewolf and she's part of Luke's pack. She is the same age about as pretty much any of the other like shadow hunters. And she kind of becomes friends with like Simon and Clary, I would say. And she becomes important-ish later on in the book, but I just wanted to like introduce her character here because I do think that like she comes in later.
We meet her like in a bar and Jace is there. And
she does not like Jace.
She doesn't like Jace.
Jace is like hella moody, I think.
For sure. Well, because he just got kicked out of his house.
Yeah, he's like, I can't make out with my sister and I don't have a place to live.
Yeah.
What do I have to live for?
Being a real piece of shit. And then we find out that someone, is it like one of the other werewolves? Someone gets attacked like in the alley, like outside of the bar. It's kind of just like brushed over at this point in the story. Like no one really questions it. It just like, it happens and someone tries to say that it's Jace and Jace is like, nah, I really don't care about this shit, honestly. And Simon's like, I know it wasn't him. And that's basically like all that there is of that.
He's a good guy.
In this bar scene, Jace talks to Simon and basically tells him, hey, the Lightwoods are back. Also, they kicked me out and they fucking hate me. Or not Simon, Luke. Luke is saying, I don't really think that that's like the whole story, and I don't really think that you tried to properly communicate to your big adoptive mother. Jace. Now that she's like maybe cooled down a little bit, go back there, try to explain yourself, just talk it out. I'm sure that they will be understanding. And so yeah, he goes back to the house. That's when we get to meet the fabulous Inquisitor, which he then mouths off to and goes to jail.
And while he's in the Bone Daddy realm, he ends up coming into contact with Valentine in a very spooky fashion, might I add. He is hearing ungodly screeches.
Yeah.
Just like, what the fuck's going on?
And I'm pretty sure that he was like knocked out or something when he was brought there, because I think I remember him like waking up to these screams in the prison.
He was like putting up a fight, maybe, I don't actually know, but they throw him in jail. He doesn't really know how he got there.
Yeah.
He knows he's going there.
I think it's in total darkness is part of it.
It's
like,
so dark in there, and all he's hearing are these ungodly screams, stuff he's never heard before. And then his daddy shows up. Thank God.
Yeah, thank God.
But not before.
The only thing better would be his sister.
Not before he sees the corpse of one of the Silent Brothers that he has personally come in contact with collapsing in front of him, just dying, dead. Yeah. And he realizes, oh my God, all of the Silent Brothers are dead. My dad killed all of the people here.
And they didn't make a sound.
And he has this like delightful little conversation with his daddy, and his daddy's like, what's up? I don't actually know what the interactions I don't understand like why he was meeting him up here. And
he was stealing the sword, he's stealing the sword, but he's also like, yo, I'll break you free. And he's like, don't. They already think that I'm in league with you, so please don't do that.
I wouldn't want to give anyone the wrong idea.
Yeah, and he's like, there's no way that you came here just to break me out. And he's like, of course not. I came here to get this badass sword, bro. Yeah, it turns out the sword that he's stealing is the Angel Sword, which Inquisitors / like the Clave. The Clave uses this sword during like interrogation / during like oaths and stuff like that to like make people tell the truth. Pretty sure that there's probably another use for it. Valentine's basically like, yeah, well, I mean, there's not really a point in you being in here anymore because they're not going to hold a trial because they don't have the stupid sword to like make sure that you're not lying to them. And so they're not going to try you at this point. So at the same time, we also find out that there is a fairy that's killed field somewhere in like another park that draws the attention of all of the like Clave members and like demon hunters. And it's a ploy so that they won't realize that the Bone City has been broken into by Valentine and that the Silent Brothers are all, you know, dead and the sword is stolen and stuff. If I remember correctly, Clary and the rest of the Lightwood children like kind of figure this point out, and so they go to like help out Jace, realizing that, you know, everyone's being pulled away on some wild goose chase. They go to help Jace out, free Jace from the prison. They see all the dead Silent Brothers, and they're like, yo, some crazy shit's going on. And then they come outside, and who is there? Mavis? Maris?
Mavis.
What's her name?
Maris Lightwood.
Yeah, Maris, Inquisitor, and like a bunch of other shadow hunters are there, and they're like, oh, well, you guys just thought you were so cool coming to bust your brother out of jail. And they're like, that's not what happened. They're like, Valentine was here, and they were like, well, how do we know that you didn't help him?
Back where we started.
Basically the whole time he's like, yeah, I helped my dad. You're so right.
True, bestie. It's about this time, too, that we figure out we're gonna go and talk to the Fae. Because the Fae child died, and we also think that the Seelie Queen might know some shit.
They want the Seelie Queen's help, and they also want to inform the Queen that, like, first of all, this wasn't us, right? So, like, don't be mad at the Clave, right? It was a Shadow Hunter, but, like, an ex one that we don't really like, right? We don't talk about him. And they also wanted to let them know that something does happen and they don't help, then Valentine's just gonna come after them next. Like, he hates all downworlders. That includes you. So if you don't help us now and he ends up like getting really strong, which is what he's planning on doing, then like it's gonna come back to bite you. Like underwater or something like that.
I think you have to like go through a lake, but it's not underwater.
Yeah. But like the entrance is like in the water or something. I just remember them being like, everyone's like soaking wet when they get in there.
A little snorkel venture.
Soaking wet. Be careful because fairies are very dangerous and they seem very alluring, and they will like essentially like promise you things that you most want in the world, and also like don't dance with them because you'll literally dance until you die. Clary gets a little taste of this. She like hears music when she first walks in and like doesn't even realize that she's like being drawn into dancing.
She's like, that's my shit.
And she's like, oh my god, I am feeling this. And then she gets like yanked away and she's like, yo, what the fuck? I was vibing, man. Yeah, we told you you will dance until you die. And also don't like eat or drink anything that you get here either, because that's dangerous for some reason that I can't remember.
Well, you have to stay forever.
Oh, if you like consume anything from them, you have to stay forever?
Not ideal.
Yeah.
So we end up meeting the Seelie Queen, and I wouldn't say she's like a big old bitch or anything, but she's not the most helpful. Just a little bit of a bitch.
Wait, is she like physically little?
No, it's a tall person. I don't know. We meet the Queen, and I won't lie, I don't really remember much of what she does, except for she makes her Barbie dolls kiss. She makes them smooch.
Makes them.
Well, we're getting there. Okay. So, you know, the things that need to be communicated are communicated. Hayden kind of mentioned them earlier.
Yeah, which is basically like, hey, I know that this fairy died. That wasn't us. And they were like, yeah, it was. It was a Shadow Hunter. And they were like, yeah, but he's bad. And they were like, well, it's your fucking problem. And they were like, well, if you don't help us when the time comes, then it's going to be your problem too, whether or not you want it to be, so.
And then she's like, no, but you know what is a problem? This bitch, she licked her fingers. Oh no. And so the Queen is like, okay.
What did she lick her fingers from?
Because a little pixie bit her fingers, and so she had blood on her fingers, but she also had a tiny touch of the drink on her fingers, and
that's what it was.
She licked her palm. So, unfortunately, she's got to stay forever, unless she kisses the person whom she most desires. For some reason, this leads to like a weird chain of like people kissing each other.
Actually, I just want to point out real quick that I'm fairly certain that it's Jace who must kiss the person that he most desires and not Clary. And then it turns out that Clary is that person, so.
I thought that Clary and Simon kissed first though. And then he's like, do I have to kiss?
That's the whole thing, is like you're thinking that that would be the case, but like Simon's just kind of like looking on in horror. Like I remember this being like kind of a rocky point in their newly found relationship.
No, I know. I think the first thing that happens is that he immediately kisses her and nothing happens. And then we're like,
yeah, okay,
oh,
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Not a Life with Derek moment.
Live with Derek.
Yeah, you know, the show where they kiss each other.
Oh, no, I'm not familiar with the show. I don't get the reference, but I'm sure that
They're
do.
step siblings who erotic undertones. I think it was like a Disney show. But, we have a big old smooch reel.
Yeah, and it's like...
Between Jason and Claire. I mean, I just feel like it's a given.
And it's not even just like a kiss, like they rope each other and are slipping big tongue, you know? It is a lot. I'm pretty sure that they make mention in the book that it like goes on for longer than it should.
Yes, it does.
Like they're like, you guys have to kiss, and they're like, fuck, we have to kiss. And then like by the end of it, they're like, fuck, we have to stop.
There's so much I want to say, and I don't...
It all involves this spoiler from the next book.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go out of the room?
No, I feel like I'm surprised that you don't know it already, but...
What, that they're not actually brother and sister? Yeah.
Surprise!
I could have called it.
So here's the thing. Here's the deal. This is why I don't like this book as much as I thought that I did, right? I remember that they were siblings when they kissed, and I do remember it being angsty and tension-filled, and but I feel like I remember after this scene happened, like not that far after, we find out they're not actually siblings, and we're like...
No, they're still siblings.
They're still siblings for this
book.
whole fucking book. Spoiler alert. I don't remember that. And again, I think that really changes things for me. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to do in the first place, let's be honest, to like make this a big thing in your book. It's even weirder to have this idea of a 3-book series, and for 2 of those books, you've got kissing siblings, and then in the 3rd book, you decide to do away with that. I mean, I understand tension and angst, but come on.
The most of the first book, they're not siblings.
I
and then the
suppose
end
that,
of
yeah,
it, they're
yeah.
siblings, and they're like, oh, we can't do this. And the second book, the reason why I'm not anywhere close to surprised by this reveal of yours right now is because they make too much of a fucking deal about it, this second book. Like, obviously, like, they have to make a kind of a big deal about it in the first book if that's like your reveal of the first book, right? They just continued to like harp on it over and over again. This like will they won't they like tension of we both still really love each other, but like it would absolutely disgust everyone around us.
Girl, you're already disgusting everyone around you. Might as well just fucking go for it at that point, is all I'm saying. But yeah, I think to me, it made this book hard to read and challenging, and I think it just really goes to show how much your caricature can develop over time. And I feel like I've changed. I feel like I can read a forbidden taboo relationship now that isn't this. I think like that was my first introduction into that.
Why don't they just actually be siblings?
No, that's not what I'm advocating for. I think for me, like, again, this was my first foray into that. It's forbidden, but also like we find out that they're not actually, you know, and so it's like satisfies all of your angst and tension needs as a young folk. But I just I think it went on a bit too long in this book. I'll admit. This scene was just further proof of that. I remember like this was one of my favorite scenes because it was so it was like so dramatic, and I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people were like really hoping that would be included in like the movies and the show because it is so like shock and awe. I
didn't think it was very shocking.
I mean it really wasn't, but
it wasn't shocking.
I was gagged.
I didn't really think that it was like very dramatic either. Yeah. Like I think we all knew that like there was going to be at least 1 or 2 moments in this book where they kiss.
Oh, for sure.
Anyways, it's just a repeat of the last book. Nothing is developed, nothing progressed or regressed. Yep, it's the same. It's exactly the same.
To mirror that sameness of the first book, after this encounter happens, Simon acts out by going to the Hotel du Mort, basically becoming a vampire. I mean, to make a long motherfucking story short, he becomes a vampire. He was scared he was turning into a vampire, so he goes to seek out Raphael to ask questions. Other vampires catch him and end up like essentially murdering him, I guess, but since he had Raphael's blood in him from when he was a rat, he doesn't actually die, he becomes a vampire.
And I understand that, like, this obviously has more significance in terms of, like, the future of the series.
Yeah, like, he's not gonna not be a vampire anymore.
This is another moment where I'm just like, this is the same as the first book. Same,
yeah.
He was turned into a rat, now he's turned into a bat. Just is how it is. It's Simon acts out and gets himself in trouble, and then everyone has to either, like, save him or look on in horror as he is, like, trouble and might possibly die. Not only that, but it's still with the same fuckers as the first book. It's not even with a new group of people. It's not even new
vampires. Yeah, exactly. Moving on from there, I think the next plot point that I have written down is that Maya gets attacked.
Yeah, and there's this, like, whole thing with, like, a little bit of backstory that we get from Maya at the beginning of the book where, like, she dated some abusive guy and then she broke up with him and then he, like, tracked her down in the park, messed her up real bad, and then turned her into a werewolf. One thing that we didn't mention is that Valentine, at the very beginning of the book, summons a demon who is like the demon of fear and like shows you your biggest fear. And so we get this a lot in the book as it goes. I'm pretty sure that in the prison, when Jace is in prison, Valentine,
he sees his greatest fear imagined, and it's like something bad happening to Clary, or is it people finding out that he loves Clary?
No. It's something bad happening to Clary. And that being said, we keep getting this over and over again of like people seeing their biggest fears, and then turns out no, it's just this big bad demon that Valentine summoned, right? So that's what happens here. She gets attacked, but she sees Guy that like turned her into a werewolf in the first place, and like, you know, this was like a big traumatic moment in her life. But anyways, she gets attacked.
And then the last part of this book, because I think we're about at like the 70-ish% mark at this point. And you're like, okay, well, not that much has happened. This is kind of like what's going on. I would say the last 30% of this book is just a bunch of fucking boats. We're on a boat and some stuff's happening. We get off the boat and then other stuff. I'll be honest, it's all a blur to me, but I'm sure Hayden will guide us through these waters. As he does.
Jace takes a motorcycle and goes to visit Valentine on this boat. I can't even fucking remember how he, like, knows that he's there.
Yeah.
But he goes and visits Valentine on this boat and is like, yo, what is going on, man? Like, what are you even up to? And he's like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna, like, you know, raise an army of demons. And that's what I've been up to this whole time. One of the things that I need to do in order to, like, make all of these demons cool with me is I also need blood from like each one of the downworlder races. It's basically the classic fucking stupid trope that I hate, like hero villain kind of scenarios where the villain explains his entire fucking plan instead of just doing it and succeeding. This is exactly what I'm gonna do, and also you can go now. Basically explains his whole plan, and so now we know why there was a fairy that was attacked. We know that Maya was attacked. We know that he needs, like, you know, blood from each one of the downworlders. And then...
Does he keep Maya on the ship? Because I know he keeps Simon on the ship.
Well, I don't think Simon has been kidnapped yet.
Well, not yet, but I just mean, we're moving there, right?
Yeah, Maya and Simon have a whole little, like, heart-to-heart moment on the ship, because earlier, actually, this is, like, happening right now. At the same time that they're on the boat, Clary and Luke and Maya and Simon are all, like, hanging out at the house. Maya gets, like, attacked, like, basically, like, in the front yard of the house or something, and then gets, like, taken inside. So she hasn't been, like, kidnapped yet, I don't think, because there's a whole interaction with Simon and Maya where, like, Maya finally finds out that Simon is a vampire now and is immediately like, get the fuck away from me. I will tear your shit up just because you're a vampire. And he's like, yo, man, we were cool, like, 10 minutes ago, like, before you knew that. Like, I'm chill, you're chill.
We are natural enemies.
Yeah. Then also, there's another, like, demon that attacks Luke out in the front yard or some shit. All of that happens. Jace has another, like, run-in with the Inquisitor where she's like, you know, I know that you went to go see your dad.
You get to go in the cage of shame.
He basically gets put in a cage again, which he breaks out of by just jumping really high.
Because he's told that he has special demon abilities because his dad did, like, experiments and shit on him. Larry can do, like, runes that no one's ever seen before.
Yeah.
Jace is just, like, super great at his job. That's basically his skill.
And speaking of that whole bit, we get this whole scene with, like, oh, well, Jace can do cool shit. Clary, I bet you can do some cool shit, too. You made that rune that, you know, the one thing that you did the last book that no one's ever seen before. Why don't you try to just do that again? Why don't we, like, just think of something? How about Fearless? It's Fearless. She makes a rune and everyone's like, oh, well, who's she gonna put it on? You know, like, don't give it to Jace because, like, we won't be able to...
He's already fearless.
Yeah, we won't be able to tell the difference.
So we put it on Alec instead.
So they put it on Alec, and then the Lightwoods come home, and he's like, hey, by the way, I have something to tell you guys. I'm in a relationship, and then gets, like, knocked the fuck out, basically.
Before he can say that he's in a relationship with Magnus, which, again, like, I haven't even seen them interact. Like, when did they get in a relationship? Am I missing something?
Well, no, it's, like, kind of implied very heavily early on in the book that, like, Magnus and Alec have been hanging out a lot.
Sure.
But, like, he still won't admit even to the rest of the people, like, the rest of the Lightwood children and stuff like that. One, that he's gay. Two, that he's, like, actually in a relationship. Part of it is he doesn't want to come out I think the other part of it is that he's still kind of like a little bit like holding out hope for Jace kind of thing.
For sure, but I think my thing here is that in some of the other series I've read by Cassandra Clare, she has, you know, things happening with a bunch of different characters at once, so why the fuck have we never seen them actually hang out? Like, that to me was just like kind of weird, and I guess she tries to correct that later on in the series, and like Magnus and Alec do have their own book series now at this point. I think there's only a couple books out, but like, it's just weird that they're not really like...
You know what I just thought about is the fact that Alec at this point is thinking, oh, well, Clary can't get with her brother. Maybe I can still get with my brother. The brotherly love.
Brotherly love. Mm-hmm.
Does this take place in Philly? Oh yeah, he almost like tells his parents, and I'm pretty sure it's Magnus that like stops him from doing it.
Yeah.
But he does it because he knows that like the Fearless rune is on, and like Alec's not really ready to come out to anyone yet, and so he's just like he truly cares about him. So it's like
he's a homie.
Magnus, though he doesn't have that much screen time or, you know, page time in this book or the last book.
Yeah.
He's like easily my favorite character.
Oh, he's a great guy. I think that's a pretty universal thing. Everybody loves Magnus.
He's like the only normal person in this series.
He's a warlock.
Yeah, does that mean he used to be a person?
No, it's like a donkey.
Oh, like he was... Okay, like his parents were two different...
Yeah, and he's sterile.
Species
and he can't
or
have
whatever.
Kids.
Interesting. So no pregnant Alec later?
Not the M-Preg. So we have Jace in a cage. It's really all that we needed to get from this, but we got a lot more than we really bargained for, right?
Yeah.
Jace is in a cage. And Valentine at this point has stolen Maya and Simon. He has him on his pleasure boat in the East River.
Yeah.
As the Inquisitor likes to say.
And so Jace basically hits a kangaroo jack and jumps like 30 feet like through the roof or some shit like that because the cage that she put him in only has 4 sides. It doesn't have a top side. That's like literally the logic that they explain it in the book when it happens. They're like, oh, well, you saw her put the sides up, right? And he's like, yeah.
I bet you forgot the roof.
Yeah, did you ever see the roof? And so he's like, yeah, but it's like 30 feet. And they're like, yeah, I bet you can't do it. And then he hits a white boy can't jump, jumps through the roof or whatever, and like gets out. And everyone's like, oh, and then we get, you know, Clary's big rune reveal. Anyways, long story short, then we realize that Simon's been kidnapped. And so has Maya at this point, sometime in here. He's got those people. It's time to go to the boat again.
Gotta find Simon.
Time to go to the yacht club. Make the car, like, fly / like, drive on water, Luke's truck, so that they can get to the boat. They're like, oh, how are we gonna get out to the boat? And Magnus is just like, oh, I'll just magic your car.
We'll spell it.
So they go out to the boat.
They find that Simon has his fucking throat slit.
Oh, yeah, Simon has his throat slit.
And we get arguably the most erotic moment of this entire book, and it's not between the people you think it will be. Jace decides that he's going to feed Simon because Simon's laying there dying, and this is, like, maybe the only way he can save him. And I guess Clary's too puss to do this, so...
No, she's not, like, there.
Okay,
like,
well...
he's the one who, like, finds Simon and understands that, like, he's probably gonna die because he, like, has 0 blood left in his body, essentially.
Country girls make do, and in this case, I guess Simon's the country girl.
Country girls make don't, please.
And Jace is the corn. So he goes to town on his carotid and it's erotic. It's downright erotic. He apparently leaps onto him after he starts, like, getting some of this blood in him. And he's just like...
and then he realizes, and he's like, whoa, bro. I could have killed you. And he's like, yeah, I get that.
I would have been okay with it. Love that.
You could suck me dry.
Nihilist. Mad shit going down.
I mean, basically, like I said, it's the exact same shit that happens in book 1, where they like kind of stop Valentine, but like not really, because they don't get any of the stuff back, I think, right? Like, they don't get the sword, they don't get the cup, they don't get Valentine. He kind of just disappears again.
They just get scorpions.
They just get their friends back.
Big-ass scorpions.
Scorpions?
Yeah. Like, that's the bitch that kills the Inquisitor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of forget that she dies. We also find out that the Inquisitor's a bitch because her son died.
She also, I don't know if you picked up the implication, before she dies, she's talking to Jace.
I didn't.
Her and Jace are kind of like fighting evil together. She ends up kind of saving him, actually, and takes the venom herself. Mm-hmm. And she sees a scar on Jace and makes a comment like, what is that scar? And he's like, what? And she's like, what is that scar you have? She's like, who is your dad? And he's like, you know who the fuck my dad is? Like, why are you asking me this question? She dies before we really get to like explore that.
Well, I'm pretty sure that she says something to the tune of like, I guess his name was like Jace Wayland. Like, the Waylands had a child named Jace. She's like, oh yeah, I think he had a scar like that or some shit like that, right? No. Oh, okay, never mind.
No, he is not a Wayland.
Okay.
But she knows who that scar belongs to, and it's not a Wayland, and it's also not Valentine. And that's kind of the implication there, that, like, he might not actually be Clary's brother, but we're not going to get to know because she's fucking dead. And who else is going to tell him the truth? We don't know. But yeah, I do.
She ends up being, like, kind of a homie towards the end. She's, like, kind of apologizes for, like, being a bitch the whole time.
Respect it.
And then she dies. So
yeah, she's got to go out with a blaze of glory.
She really got hers, you know?
And I think some other people get fucked up here. I think Isabel maybe also gets the venom. Either Isabel or Alex, somebody. Who gives a fuck at this point, you know?
It doesn't matter because they're fine. You know?
Yeah.
They didn't die, and basically nothing happens to them.
Does anything major happen between this point and the epilogue?
Yes. One thing happens, and this is what I wanted to, like, this is what I said I would get to later. As we are escaping from the boat, everyone is, like, in the truck boat driving away. Then we realize that it's sunrise is happening, and Simon's in the back of the truck, and they're like, what the fuck are we gonna do? And then basically everyone's like, well, there's not really anything we can do, so bye, Simon. And they're like, why don't we like throw a blanket over him or something like that? And he's like, no, Raphael says that we have to be inside, like a layer of clothing or something like that, like won't stop it, right? And then
Clary covers him.
Yeah, but she also, like, covers her own eyes, too, because she's like, I don't want to watch this. And then
he
the sun
comes
out, and he's fine. So, like I was saying, the transformation from rat to bat has some larger implications for the story because, you know, he's a vampire now. But it doesn't really, because that's, like, the one thing that vampires can't do is go out into the sun. And,
I mean, they can't eat, like, human food.
Yeah, but who the fuck cares if he can't eat human food? I don't think that that's a major plot point, you know?
I fucking like food.
I guess, but, like...
I'd be a bummer for me.
What if he, like, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think of, like, a human thing.
Maybe
like,
blood's really delicious.
Could you, like, lose your stomach or something where, like, for the rest of your life you have to be fed nutrients, like, intravenously, you know? Like, you can't, like, consume food anymore? Yeah, so that could happen to him, and he could still not be a vampire, you know what I mean? It wouldn't have a larger implication in the story besides, like, oh, it's time to feed Simon, get the needles, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. That's
so
a fair assessment.
The fact that he can still go in the sunlight, honestly, fucking pissed me off, and it just added to the fact that this book
did nothing
and is nonsense. So sorry, Cassandra, if you're watching this.
You fumbled the bag on this one.
You kind of hit a flop on this one, yeah.
Cassandra's in her flop era, but I think she might make a comeback in the third book. The third book, I think is like pretty solid. I think most people, it's agreed upon, it's like a pretty solid.
Jace and Clary finally have sex.
Oh, I think they do actually. That's not why I liked it.
I'm a brother lover.
Okay, well, the epilogue comes and I don't find it that exciting, except for we're kind of back to square one. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe this is a new development. Jason's like, hey, Clary, let's go to this diner and eat together. And she's like, all right, sure, let's go. She wanted to talk to him. And I think what she wanted to say is, I'm ready to fuck.
Yeah, like, I don't care. Because they have this conversation earlier in the story where basically they're like, Jace is like, why don't we just do it, man? You know, who cares if people don't like it, right?
Yeah.
And Clary's like, no, we can't do that. And so whenever we go to have this conversation at the end...
Clary's changed her tune because, you know, some shit's gone down and she's like, I don't want to go out without having banged my bro, you know?
So has Jace.
Jace comes out and is like, hey, you know, after everything that's happened, I have figured out the opposite of what you figured out. I don't want to fuck anymore. I want to just be your brother because I realized when I got kicked out of the house and when, like, you know, nobody loved me anymore, that I want someone to love me in a familial sense, you know? Not biblically, just familially.
And basically Clary's like, and that's the day my heart died.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, and also Clary and Simon break up. And, like, not in a bad way. He's just like,
you know what?
You know, man, like, I understand that, like, I can't really have you, and I'd rather have you as a best friend than, like, have you play pretend as my girlfriend. She never says, really, the whole book,
that he is her boyfriend.
Dating. Yeah, exactly.
He's the only one that, like, says they're together, and I think that was really, like, cool of him. I think I'm glad that he didn't push for it anymore. I think he's developing his character. I like Vampire Simon much more than Human Simon, even though...
They're the same.
even even though there's only minor changes to his physicality, like I think his personality changes in a way that I like in the next book and in the future books.
To wrap it up, the only other thing that happens is we get like a mysterious visit from a mysterious woman who's like, I can wake your mom up.
The only person that knows how.
Yeah.
Claire's like, and that's how the book ends.
Oh yeah, and like that's one thing that I didn't like that we got in the show or the movie, or maybe both of them. I think probably both of them. But in the books, in the first book, when everything first goes down,
yeah,
and Clary's mom was like unconscious or whatever, I don't think that we really get... Do we get that she did it to herself in the book?
In the book, in the show, and the movie.
Yeah, I just didn't remember that we got it in the book. This lady is the first one that reveals it to Clary, that it wasn't something that was done by someone else. Her mom did it to herself so that Valentine couldn't, like, use her as a tool to, like, get information or to, like, harm Clary or something like that. So she, like, put herself to sleep or like in a coma or whatever, and there's nothing that a mundane doctor is going to be able to help with, and I'm the only person that she entrusted with the secret of like how to wake her up.
So that's it. So we're kind of back at square one. The mom's not awake.
Just again, this is the same book as book one. Her mom is still fucking asleep for the entire book. I told Chandler at one point, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind if this bitch doesn't wake up in this book at some point, and she didn't. Only thing that we got was we know how to wake her up.
I think me and you are dissatisfied with this book for very similar reasons. You're upset because the mom's still not awake. I'm upset because they're still siblings.
Does that make you upset?
It does. Feel wrung out after reading this book, to be honest.
Like
a used towel.
This was... I never do this. Chandler is the king of listening to audiobooks on... and just YouTube video. Whatever content she consumes it at like at least 2 to like 3 times speed. I don't do that ever. I really enjoy the amount of time that it takes to like read or listen like a really long book, right?
Here's the thing. We're not going to get into a debate about it. It's not about the amount of time.
I know.
I'm enjoying it at my speed.
This is the first time that I listened on 2x speed.
I actually did
because I really wanted to get through this.
I did want to point out that I actually didn't like this narrator. I know you didn't really like the first narrator, but I did.
Wait, it was a different narrator?
Yes. Didn't enjoy this one.
But maybe it's because I listened at 2x.
Maybe. I mean, it obviously would have been worse at 1 time speed, but I just don't love this narrator. I didn't...
You didn't connect.
It wasn't emotionally resonant for me, shall we say. Win some, you lose some, and I think we both lost today.
Yeah, I lost my mind.
But I do hope that we find it in this third book that we're going to be reading. I haven't decided yet at this point if I want to read past the third book in the series, like if I want to read past the original trilogy. When we talked about this last time, I was like, yeah, we're going to read all the books. At this point, I don't know if I want us to suffer that much.
We will see based on the third one. I mean, obviously, hopefully the third one is like a lot better because this one left a bad taste in my mouth and my ears, and so that is already setting the third book up for failure. So it's got to be like pretty positive to bring the series out of the negative.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I can definitely promise you we're doing the third book. And I think if we decide after reading that third one before doing the dbbc that we don't want to continue on, I'll let you know the crazy shit that happens in the last 3 books.
Okay.
Just to get your thoughts and feelings, because I feel like Hayden really needs to know the crazy shit Cassandra pulls. Absolutely.
You've been talking about it since I started reading the
it's the reason
so.
I initially stopped reading the books. So it takes a lot.
I feel like it's got to be pretty bad to make you stop reading.
Yeah.
Because like to me, there isn't really, personally, and like not to like offend people, but like there isn't really anything else this book series has going for it besides the incest. There is something that is crazy enough that it made you stop reading it, then I gotta know what that is.
I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted. Meet you here, same place, same time, next month.
I'm gonna make sure that I don't enjoy this next book, just so I don't have to read like 5 more to find out whatever crazy shit she's talking about.
I also just want to like read some romance with you. Honestly, like I miss it.
Some more brother-sister romance?
I was kind of thinking like an adult contemporary romance, but you know, whatever.
They could both be adults.
Thanks so much for watching. Love you all so much. And until next time.
Till next time.